Many Destiny players are unaware that there is a weekly developing storyline where we get super important lore by going to the Veil Containment. There's no indicator in-game, you just have to go to the bottom left of Neptune's map and manually load into the Veil Containment area and interact with the console screen each weekly reset. In this video you can find all of the footage from every week we've had thus far, and if you don't have that time, I provide a summary and interpretation of what happens each week. You can check out the timestamps if you'd rather skip to those. On the first week, we learned that the Veil was already on Neptune prior to the arrival of Exodus Indigo and the Ishtar Collective. The research team learns that the Veil emits very strong electromagnetic radiation. Dr. Maya Sundaresh starts hearing a whisper in her own voice, revealing it being named Veil, and from that point she becomes convinced it will be their salvation. Every researcher coming into contact with the Veil dies from a state of brain death, while exos exposed to it also experience billboarding. And finally, we get another confirmation that Savathun betrayed the Witness, stole the Veil, and killed Nezarec.
Chioma Essie, research log, the Veil. I don't even know where to start. When we landed on Neptune, there was something waiting for us. An alien structure. It's an electromagnetic anomaly. No mass, but a tangible surface area. It's like a thesis statement to the von Neumann-Wigner hypothesis. It's definitely paracausal, like the Traveler. Maya calls it the Veil. She says she heard the name in a whisper when she looked at it. When I asked her who whispered, she said it was her own voice. I still haven't had time to process that. Everyone on the initial survey team died. The minute they touched the object, they entered a state of brain death. All of them. To make it worse, the EM radiation emitting from the Veil is causing psychological distress in the exos that came with us. They've all described moments of intense, hallucinogenic reverie. Some of them went silent and rigid and just stopped. Maya called it billboarding. Something from the early days of Clovis Bray's Exomind project. She doesn't seem afraid or surprised. She's convinced this thing, in her own words, she says, it'll be our salvation.
Fascinating. This corroborates what Nezarec said, that the Veil survived Savathun's escapade. This must have been the root of Savathun's betrayal, stalling the Witness's plan to buy time to counter it.
So, she stole the Veil from Nezarec?
And killed him in doing so. It explains what happened to the lunar pyramid, why it's dormant.
And what about the rest of this? What happened to the Exos? Is that what happened to all of them?
I have some theories, but it's too early. Regardless, it sounds like the Veil had an ill effect on Dr. Sundaresh. We must be cautious. Hopefully the next log we decrypt will shed more light on this enigma.
On week 2, we learned that the researchers decided to settle close to the Veil. They built an enclosure around it in order to protect themselves from its radiation. The survivors utilized Siva technology they brought with them on the Exodus ship for all their construction needs. Dr. Sundaresh wants to draw power from the Veil, with Dr. Chioma Essie objecting this idea. We learned that Neomuna has contradicting records with those that we are hearing in the Veil Containment, and apparently Dr. Sundaresh is heavily redacted throughout them.
Chioma Essie, research log, the Veil. We shouldn't settle here. It's a mistake. But Maya is insistent that we have to build our long-term shelters near the Veil. We're almost done constructing an enclosure around it. Once the field emitters are up, we should at least be safe from its radiation. The Siva tech Maya had on the Exodus was a lifesaver. Not only for building the enclosure, but shelters, tools. We'd be dead without it. But it still wasn't fast enough. The last XO in our group succumbed to brain death yesterday. Maya's quarantined the bodies for study. She says our next step should be finding a way to draw power from the Veil so we're self-sufficient. I'm insisting on turbines instead. But she doesn't think that's good enough. Not for as long term as this might be. Which, I guess. But I can't shake this feeling. Like we're making a terrible mistake.
I'm not getting a good vibe from this. Quinn says these records contradict some of her own. But there's a ton of references to Maya Sundaresh in our archives that are redacted. I'm worried, Osiris. What if everything we've been told our whole lives? What if it was all a lie?
Don't despair yet, young friend. The truth may be somewhere between these logs and what you've been told in the past. In my experience, history can be contradictory. Regardless, we won't know until we decrypt more of these logs.
On week 3, we learned that following the Ishtar collective settlement, Vex forces began to make intrusions into the area and attacking them. The Vex attempt to retroactively insert themselves into the history of Neptune using time manipulation. This is a tactic they have successfully used on Venus. However, the Vex were repelled by the Veil and its paracausal nature. This failure leads them to instead interfere with Neptune's magnetic field, weaving a simulation into it and isolating the planet from the outside world. We also hear Chioma Esi reflecting on her upcoming anniversary, with Maya Sundaresh becoming more distant. Osiris sees similarities between his past self and obsessions and Maya's behavior.
Chioma Esi, incident log. The Vex.
Interesting.
6 weeks ago, our settlement came under attack by an intrusion of Vex forces. It was a test of our defenses for a larger incursion. Yesterday, scouts discovered temporarily realigned architecture just outside the stronghold limits. The Vex had retroactively inserted themselves into Neptune's history, just like they did on Venus. But unlike Venus, something stopped them short of our habitat. They had to fight their way in. I think it's the Veil. Something about the paracausal nature of the Veil is preventing their temporal excursions. But the Vex aren't giving up. They did something to Neptune's magnetic field, wove a sim into it, a screen to isolate us. It's a double-edged sword. The Vex screen hides us from the outside world, from whatever's happened. So we're safe-ish. But we're stuck with the Vex. Thankfully, they're slow to react, and it's giving us time to research countermeasures. It's almost our anniversary. I should do something for Maya. She'll forget. She's always so busy. Computer, prepare food synthesis. File, Chioma date night 6. Oh, and add a bottle of port.
Osiris? You alright?
Yes, I'm fine. I just, saw shadows. My choices. Saint. Dr. Sundaresh and I walked very similar paths of obsession, it seems.
Oh,
And nevertheless, it appears that Neomuna's history is deeply tied to the Vex. Hopefully the next decryption will shed more light on this.
On week 4, we hear Dr. Esi and Dr. Sundaresh coming up with a theory about the exo-deaths. They suggest that exos are created from a combination of radiolaria, or Vex milk, and clarity. Clarity is a paracausal power derived from a darkness artifact. We have previously heard about this idea in Clovis Bray's journal and his process of creating exos. Dr. Sundaresh believes that the Veil is tied to the same artifact creating clarity. The Veil seems to have overloaded the minds of the exos and essentially unraveled and erased them. Maya Sundaresh wants to reverse engineer this process in order to fabricate consciousness.
Chioma Esi, research log. Exos. Maya and I have built a working theory around the deaths of our exo crewmates after their exposure to the Veil. According to Maya, exo minds contain a combination of Vex radiolaria and something known as clarity. Radiolaria are alien microorganisms living within a hive mind state. Or, I suppose more accurately, a community. Clarity is... Maya described it as a paracausal power derived from an alien artifact. Something Braytech had kept secret. Something Maya thinks the Veil and this artifact are related. That the paracausal force from the Veil overloaded their exominds. Unraveled them. It's like taking a powerful magnet to an archaic magnetic storage device. Full erasure. But Maya... she thinks we can reverse engineer this phenomenon. Use it to write data to a clarity-infused object. Fabricate consciousness. Scientifically, the process seems sound, but morally... Maya keeps saying that we're past the point of morality. She said that. She's convinced that our survival hinges on mastery of the Veil. It's like she's the one unraveling. I feel like I'm losing her. But every time I try and push, I feel her move a little further away. I don't know if I can lose anything else. How much more can any of us lose before there's nothing left?
Nimbus, how much do you know about the Cloud Strider's creation? The technology used?
You don't think...
I make no assertions yet. But I worry that your neon-lit city may have darker roots than either of us knew.
Oh,
Week 5 talks about how Siva is similar to a mechanical version of Vex Radiolaria. In fact, it is likely that the inspiration for Willa Bray creating Siva originates from the Vex. Dr. Sundaresh and Dr. Essie push Siva's design further by incorporating it with parts from Vex and erased exominds. We can then understand that there is some connection between Cloud Striders and the Vex, and that leads Osiris to suggest that this is how Cloud Striders are capable of entering the Vex network without using any splicers.
Chioma Essie. Research log. Siva. Siva is a nanotech fabrication system, intended to be used by Exodus ships to rapidly build necessary resources from base matter. Maya calls it Willa Bray's obsession, without a hint of self-awareness. But we both see the potential it poses for the future. Each nanomachine in Siva's design is an independent, thinking machine, utilizing a distributed quantum network to coordinate movement. Like a mechanical version of Radiolaria. Probably where the design was inspired from, if I'm being honest. But the design can be pushed. We're looking at ways of incorporating components from disabled Vex and erased exominds. If we can insulate the nanomachines from the radiation that killed the exos, maybe their deaths won't be for nothing.
wait. Does this really mean I'm part Vex?
Well, it's too early to jump to these conclusions, Nimbus. But there does seem to be some connection between the Vex and the Cloud Striders. It may explain why you and the others are able to enter the Vex network without the aid of splicers.
Can I time travel?
No, let's hope not.
Week 6 reveals that with inspiration from Siva and the Vex, a prototype interface for the Veil is created by the Ishtar research team. This prototype is meant to help receive and interpret psychic emanations from the Veil. The system is designed like an orchestra, with a central conductor guiding a network of linked minds. We know that linked consciousness is heavily tied to the darkness. This process involves a huge risk and results in a staggering mortality rate. Having seen what they are doing, Dr. Essie second guesses their work and becomes heartbroken about their unethical conduct.
Chioma Essie. Research log. Veil interface. Maya and I have finalized a prototype interface for the Veil. Hopefully it'll allow our research team to investigate it in detail. The system's designed like an orchestra, with a central conductor directing a symphony of minds to act like a distributed network. The idea came to us by watching how collective networks like SIVA and the Vex operate. The hope is we can aggregate and parse the vast amounts of psychic data emitting from the Veil, turn it into something intelligible. If we're successful, the interface will provide us with a starting point for any future technological research tied to the Veil. The risks of such integration are high. The estimated mortality rates are... But I don't know what I'm doing. This is wrong. This is so wrong. We shouldn't... All she ever talks about is survival. Think big picture. What about your survival? What about your heart? My heart? I can't keep doing this. I can't. I can't.
Again, I see a shadow of myself in Maya Sundaresh. The man I could have become had I let obsession continue to rule me. I'm worried what the next recording will reveal.
Me too.
In week 7, we learned that all the subjects using the prototype interface were killed. This includes the conductor and the chorus. Dr. Sundaresh has very little regard to any of those lives lost, and to the shock of Dr. Essie, views those deaths as valuable data points. A parallel is then made between Maya's behavior and conduct and that of the witness. It is suggested that the witness's origin race became fully conjoined, possibly through a ritual with the Veil, and it is implied that their processes also similarly involves a chorus and a conductor, which is exactly the path Maya Sundaresh was heading towards.
Chioma SE. Research log. Veil interface. Supplemental. They're all dead. Chorus. Conductor. Everyone. It was too much. Swept their minds away like grains of sand on a beach. They're all dead. Maya called it valuable data points. Wellsprings and rivers are something. What have I done?
Dead. This killed their entire research team, but it sounds like... It's like...
Like their lives held no value to Dr. Sundaresh. There's a troubling symmetry with data we've recovered from Titan. Data on the origin of the witness. It too was once multiple people that became conjoined by the way of some sort of ritual with the Veil. Perhaps a conductor and a chorus. It is troubling that Dr. Sundaresh seemed to be moving down that same path.
I don't like this, Osiris. I don't like this at all.
Week 8 starts with Dr. Essie's resignation from any further experiments with the Veil. She can't handle Maya's obsession anymore and finds it dangerous. In spite of this, Dr. Sundaresh continued her testing, and this time she hooked up brain-dead erased exos to the Veil interface. By doing so, she manages to reverse the machine's designs. The chorus of dead exos funneled data into the conductor seat, where for unknown reasons Maya Sundaresh provided her own mental imprint to be imposed on a recipient. We then get a huge reveal that the exo recipient in her experiment is none other than Lakshmi 2, the eventual founder of the future war called faction, who supposedly died during the finale events of Season of the Splicer.
Chioma SE. Research log. Lakshmi 2.
What?
Maya's... I don't even know what to say. I'd recused myself from further experiments. Told her to take some time off. She refused. And the minute I wasn't there, she started hauling the brain-dead exos out of cold storage, hooking them up to the Veil interface. She burned through dozens of them, reversed the entire machine's design, used a chorus of brain-dead exos to funnel data down to the conductor seat, projecting a mental imprint. Hers. I didn't know Lakshmi 2, but Maya did. And now she's made this thing. It speaks with her voice, has some of her memories. The way it looks at me. It's like it knows something I don't.
Osiris, do you recognize that name? Lakshmi?
Yes. And no. Lakshmi, too, was an exo and once leader of a faction on Earth known as the Future War Cult. She died over a year ago. But she never once made mention of any of this. Of Neomuna, of Maya. Did she know? Did she remember? This is all as much a revelation to me as it is to you. It throws everything she did while in the last city into question.
I mean, if she was a copy of Dr. Sundaresh, then is she really dead?
I don't know. For now, I must deliver a rather uncomfortable report to Ikora.
The fact that Lakshmi is to a degree a copy of Dr. Sundaresh has massive implications. We currently don't know the circumstances of her revival through that experiment, or whether she had any memories tied to Maya Sundaresh and the Veil, but this could link to future seasons and storylines, and you can bet that we'll hear more about this unusual occurrence. And as a final bonus tidbit, here's a really cool connection between the two characters. Lakshmi is the name of a Hindu goddess. She is most notably associated with the concept of Maya, the ability to turn ideas into physical reality. It is often described as a veil hiding the true nature of the universe. Sounds familiar at all? Kudos to the narrative team for this incredible setup. Thank you for watching the video. I really hope you learned something new and that I could save you some time if you had no idea about this weekly storyline developing. I will definitely stay on top of it, and I appreciate your viewership and attention. If you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments. If you'd like more Destiny content, consider subscribing and hitting that like button.